Hey, welcome again to Reinvention with Leif Welhaven. Great to have you again this week. We've got a special guest in the studio. I'm excited to hear about this reinvention story, partly because I already know bits and pieces of it, but I don't know that I know the full story. So it's great. I was just telling Felicia here that I'm so comfortable to have her here as my first guest because she and I have known each other a long time. Good friends, just love her dearly, and so it's very comfortable to have a conversation with her. I don't feel, I feel at ease. I feel comfortable, and so I'm excited to hear this because I know it inspires me, and I know it's going to inspire you too. So let's just get right after it. So this is Felicia Burg. Everybody give it up for Felicia. And Felicia I've known for a few years now. I met her through a Chamber of Commerce get-together event program it was called Mentor Mentee, where they would assign you to somebody. And to me, I was going to be the mentor. She was going to be the mentee, and I was going to impart all this amazing knowledge and wisdom and all these things to her. And actually, I think it was the other way around. I learned way more from her than she'll ever learn from me. But to be honest, it was just, I've heard her story. She's told it many times. And so I want to be able to kind of dive into that reinvention story. And I think you're gonna find that it's amazing. It's so timely in this day and age, timely with COVID, timely with start of a new year. A lot of people are trying to make some changes in their life, right? They're trying to get fit. They're trying to get healthy. They're trying to get out of debt. They're trying to read more books. Maybe they're dealing with some debt challenges or financial problems, or maybe they are looking to get off an addiction or whatever. And so I have an addictive personality, as a lot of you know. But so anyway, we're just going to jump in and we're going to talk with Felicia. And so I've already talked too much, so we're just going to let Felicia kind of take the stage here in the mic. And Felicia, will you just tell us a little bit about you, just a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of backtrack and go, maybe 9-10 years ago, and we can start there, wherever you feel most comfortable starting. So let's do it.
Well, like you said, I'm Felicia Burg, and I work here at Billings for Family Promise, a Sun Valley, a nonprofit, and it was so awesome to meet you through that chamber, through the Mentor Mentee program, and there's no way you learned more from me than I learned from you. Excuse me. So, lived in Montana most of my life since I was about 7 years old. I'm a Montana girl. I love it here. I don't think I'll ever leave. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. The people are amazing.
The people here are amazing.
They're
Absolutely.
they're just so great.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my background in a nutshell.
Okay. Cool. Well, tell us, talk about this reinvention piece that that I'm trying to bring forward and bring light to. So tell us a little bit about where you were maybe a decade ago, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And don't hold anything back.
Right.
Okay?
So interesting enough, I was 17 years old when I first became homeless here in Montana, and started out in a small town called Absorkey, Montana, that has, one post office, one bar, and one grocery store, and that's the size of the town.
Just to get that straight, you said you were homeless.
I was homeless.
At 17?
At 17.
Wow. All right, keep going. Let's hear it.
In a tiny, picture-perfect town in Absorkey, Montana. So fast forward to 9 or 10 years ago, through that process of being a homeless teen, and at 17, I thought I knew it all, of course, as every 17-year-old does. I turned to drugs and alcohol and made all the wrong decisions in my life because I really didn't know. I didn't know what life really had for me, or what my purpose was, or what my vision was, or anything like that. I just wanted immediate gratification, and I didn't want to deal with hard things at that time.
Absolutely. What's at 17?
I wanted the easy life.
Tough things, right? Yeah.
Easy life. So I became an addict very quickly. Methamphetamine was my drug of choice. And in Montana and all across the U.S., it's very prevalent, and it's very addictive. And that's what I turned to. That's what I did.
We were talking about that the other day with regards to meth, and it is such a huge challenge in our society today. But what makes it so addictive? What makes it so accessible for people?
Well, I think just the supply and demand makes it accessible. If there's a demand, people will supply it. Right. I think chemically in your brain, drugs and things that people try to fill that void in them with. We have natural dopamine, things that make us happy. And when you use drugs, it just spews out all this dopamine and all this stuff that first time you use it, and you can never get that same high, that same happiness again, and that's what you're always chasing. And that, for me, that was my dragon. That was what I wanted, was that happiness and having a thing supply that for me instead of figuring out how to reinvent myself.
Right.
And create my own goals and find that happiness for myself.
So you turned to the drugs because
Turned
that
to the drugs.
offered it, and it's fairly affordable. I think you and I were talking about that too the other day, right?
It's you find a way, no matter what the price is.
Sure.
Sure. And it's out there.
So, did you have any children at that time?
So when I was homeless at 17. By 24, I had my first son.
Okay.
And then 18 months later, I had my second son. And so, still homeless, trying to, hold a job as a single mother in an addiction. With no background.
Right. Were you at that time, were you in Rapalje or were you in Billings at that time?
I was by 18, I was in Billings. Okay. I had left Absorgi and I came to Billings. So I was here on the streets here in Billings.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think a lot of times people think, when they think of homelessness, which is a huge challenge for our society to resolve and to work through, because when we think of homeless, we think of the guy or the gal that's over at Walmart or down on the corner who's panhandling, who's got a sign in their hands asking for money or asking for assistance. Is that, to you, is that homelessness? I mean, I'm not saying they're not homeless, but it's just the perception that our society has. So tell us more about that.
Right. It is, I think, a stereotype that people have. And that wasn't my experience with homelessness. I think that is an issue. Sure. A lot of those people are chronically homeless.
Sure.
Lots of mental health issues and different issues. My experience with homelessness is I didn't have the tools or the foundation to live a successful adult life.
Right.
Growing up, budgeting, money, those type of things were things that adults talked about and not kids talked about. So I didn't know how to pay bills.
Some soft skills, life skills.
Yeah, the first time I got an apartment, I didn't realize you had to pay rent again on the first.
It just keeps coming around the first of the month.
And I didn't have the support system. I didn't have, at that point, I wasn't open to learn new things, and grow as a person. And then I also think because you get so clouded with the partying and the drugs and the constant chaos, you don't have time to create those goals to strive for.
Sure. It's kind of a spiral. And
you just have to survive right now.
Sure.
And it's not a planning for the future type of lifestyle.
Well, and because I kind of know the story a little bit, tell us, so on a day-to-day basis, you're homeless, you've got 2 children, you're in Billings, Montana, you're trying to pay rent, maybe you get evicted or whatever. Tell us about, what does that look like? Tell us more about that.
It looks like chaos.
Yeah.
It looks like chaos. And to the outside world, it's very obvious. To me, I thought I was managing okay. I learned how to live with nothing, and I felt comfortable in that. But it does make a huge difference when you become a parent. When you have children that depend on you. So, from 17 to 24, I only had to worry about myself. And I did crazy things. I joined the carnival and traveled with them. And, I did crazy life, that a 20-something-year-old could do. But then when you have children, and I started to think about their future, it was different. And then because of the addiction, by the time my son was in kindergarten, other people were obviously involved in their life now, teachers and counselors and different things at school. They obviously saw something was wrong. And it came to a point where, it was take a look and do what's right for your children or lose them.
Oh, wow.
So I had
to. Wake-up call?
Yeah, I had to. And I had done different programs here in our community, but a lot of the time I felt like a number. I was a statistic.
Sure.
I wasn't, it was like, get well, then come here and ask for help. You can't pee dirty and come stay at this shelter. You can't do these things. And I wasn't at that point. Or, when I was still in the streets, I couldn't get clean to get in the door.
Right.
I couldn't do the things, and then it was felt like a big brick wall.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because, like you said, it's like you want to get the help, but there's some organizations or services that are there, but they won't accept you if you're not clean and sober. But at the same time, you don't have the tools or the resources to get clean and sober and to learn how to handle money or learn how to grow through life. And so I can see how that can be a real challenge. I know you talked a little bit about a trailer that you used to have and used to kind of move it around. So tell us about that. I found that really fascinating.
So we had this little tin can camper, and I could literally pick it up and move it. Like, we didn't need a vehicle to do it. But my eldest son was in kindergarten, and I knew that Child Protective Services were wanting to talk and see where we were living. And at that point, they couldn't, because I knew it would be bad if they saw what we were actually living in. So I would move it around the south side, which is an area of town that's, in more poverty than maybe the other areas of Billings, Montana. But I'd move it so that they could never get a set address and
so you
find
move it from spot to spot,
spot to spot. Yeah. Different, just park it on the side of a road, get to somebody's driveway that I could park it in, whatever I could. But that was just prolonging
the inevitable.
What I really needed to do.
Sure. So you're homeless at 24. You've got a couple kids. You're living on the south side. You've got a trailer that you're moving around to try to avoid CPS, dealing with the addiction still, obviously.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like that was like a lot of times people say that they can only make change or make a reinvention if they hit rock bottom in whatever it is that they're dealing with, right?
Right.
And so do you feel like that was a point of rock bottom for you, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think I was at rock bottom for a long time, but that was the worst the drug abuse had gotten. By that time, I was using needles and shooting up and just really not mentally there for my children or my family. But I knew that there was no other choice where my kids could go. There wasn't, I didn't have a strong support system of positive people. I was the only thing that my children had. And when I realized that, it wasn't my rock bottom, I want to do better for me. It's I had to do better for the kids, because what are they going to
So I talk about that a lot. I talk about identifying, unlocking, finding your why, right? Because I feel like you will go through a reinvention. You will make some changes if the why is big enough. So for you, was the why the children?
I think it started off as the children. And I think through my journey, and I think so many other people's journey, the why can change.
Absolutely.
It can definitely change. So my why started out is I didn't want my kids to go into foster care and be raised by somebody I don't know and those type of things. And then I think as my brain started to clear and I was doing some outpatient treatment and I started to go to different 12-step groups and build my social circle and build that support team, I did find that there was a love for myself, and there was my why became I deserve better than what I've been living. But that took time and evolved.
Sure.
Sometimes it's just not, you're just like, okay, today I'm going to do this because this is good for my health.
Right.
We obviously know methamphetamine is not good for your health.
Right.
But it wasn't there, and then it definitely has evolved over time.
Sure. It's changed. Absolutely. That's awesome. So we talked about the support system. We talked about, how did you get clean and sober? Who was there to help you? Tell us about that. Where did you go? What ended up being a big change for you?
So the biggest change for me was when I stepped through the doors of Family Promise here in Billings. And Family Promise is a national organization. Each affiliate, there's over 200 in the United States. But I walked into the one here in Billings, Montana. And it was the first time that I did not feel like a number. I was not a statistic. And I had people that looked at me and said, you're worth more than this, and I love you too much to let you to continue to act like this, to continue to go down this road. And that was the first time I really had that tough love, but I knew there was love there, and I knew these people wanted to help me and didn't even know me.
Wow. That was powerful. Just when you said that, it made what little hair there is on the back of my neck stand up, but about that people cared about you and didn't want you to keep going down that road. And
yeah.
that tough love is not easy. So what kind of things did you do there? Tell us
So
about
we
that.
started at the very, very beginning. So, things that most people have, I didn't have. I didn't have an ID. I didn't have Social Security cards or birth certificates or any of those things. So we started with the basics. And it also gave me a chance to, like I was talking about before, that chaos, that living from day to day, they supplied all my basic needs. So I had a place to stay. I had food for my children. I had a place to shower and get changed and wash clothes. And so then they diverted my energy and my attention to setting goals and looking in the future. Now, it might just be tomorrow goal is you're going to go to the Social Security office and get your Social Security card back. But it started my brain thinking ahead.
Sure. As opposed to just in the moment, right?
And immediate gratification was no longer what I was after. And then I started doing those little things and reaching those goals. So even the smallest things like getting your Social Security card. When I got it, the people, the staff at Family Promise were excited and like, hey, good job, way to go. And it was just like, oh, that feels good.
Right.
Started building up my self-esteem. It's like, oh, I can say I'm going to do something and then actually do it, because that was not my MO in addiction.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, because there's so many things that you've just said that we take for granted, that it's just, everybody has a Social Security card. We all have a car. We all have a driver's license. And it's not always that way for everybody. And
Right.
so I love to hear that story and the continued story. So you're at Family Promise. They're supplying your needs. As you know, I love Family Promise. I'm a huge volunteer there. So anyway, they help homeless families, not just homeless people. Right? So tell us about that. How does that work for them?
So when they took in my family, they addressed my needs and what I needed, but they also looked at what my boys needed at the time. So obviously school,
Sure.
education and clothing and food and fun and games and playing with other kids and all those things that hadn't been provided before in a positive way.
Right.
So they really look at the whole family. We got to stay together. We got to work out of the chaos together as a family, which
keep the family together. And
which
keep
is
everybody moving
super
forward.
important. Yeah,
I bet the kids loved it at the time.
every kid loves it because it's basically they get their friends there all the time.
Right.
They play all the time, and
Because
even
I'm sure they can feel the stress of mom stress. We're having to go from this house to that house. I mean, they're young, but they're not stupid, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they feel the chaos leaving too.
Right.
They know they're safe.
Isn't that great?
They know that they have their structure. Dinner's at this time. We wake up at this time, and I definitely feel like that was harder for me to get a grasp of than the children. It's just like I don't want to wake up at 6 in the morning. I don't want to, but having to do that.
And I'm sure
learning how
those
to do
days
that.
weren't all just peaches and cream and sugar pies and rainbows, whatever. Was there some tough times during that time dealing with that tough love?
Most of it was. There's not a whole lot. I mean, there is the good feelings in the building of self-confidence, but it's a hard program. You really have to. I had to look at things I didn't want to look at, issues I didn't want to look at, because that meant that I was wrong and I had to change, and I had to look at reinventing myself, which is scary when I didn't know what I was good at, what I like to do, what the future holds. So long things were like almost obtainable and then taken away. Is this going to happen too? So it was a long process of looking at what I want. And then the executive director there is like, what do you want to do? When you figure that out, we'll help you figure out how to do it. What do you want to do? Money's not an option. Doesn't matter how much schooling you think would cost or anything like that. Money's not an issue. What do you want to do? And that takes some time to figure out. Some people may just have a passion that they always had growing up and forever. I want to be a veterinarian, and that's what I've wanted since I was 5. I didn't have that luxury. Right. I had to really think and get involved and learn what I wanted to do.
What I love about what you just said was that they didn't tell you what you needed to do or what you should be doing, is they asked you what you wanted to do. What do you want to do, and let's help you get there. Versus, because that way you have buy-in, right? Because that's something that is important to you. It's not what's important to Lisa or what's important to the program. I mean, obviously they have some structure and some things that they want to do, obviously, but they know you're going to act on it and reinvent if it's your decision.
Right. And sometimes it was, I want to have a house.
Right?
You
Simple
know?
things, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So things are going well. You're a family promise. Kids are doing great. You're learning some things. You're getting some resources and some tools. What's next? What happened after that?
So I worked in the restaurant business.
Sure.
And that was kind of my go-to when I did get employed for many years. And I was doing that. But my passion was helping others. I had been homeless here in this town for about 15 years. And I still see people that I know on the streets. And it's just like, oh, man, if I could get out, they can too. And what can I do to help them? That, I just want to help others because if I can do it, they can do it.
Wow.
So I was still in the program when I first told the executive director, Lisa, to know that I wanted to work for her. She said, sure, make me a resume. I was like, oh, I don't have one of those. And so I had to learn how to do that. And then about, a year or so later, I finally did get hired on there.
Wow.
I was a part-time bus driver, taking the families to and from work, picking kids up from daycare, kind of whatever. And we were in a transition of moving into our own day center here in Billings. So I was helping pack and move and scan documents and, anything she asked me to do. Can you work Excel? Sure. And then I'd get on Google and learn how to do Excel because I didn't know how to do it. So I just said yes, and then I'd figure, out how to do it. But that's where I really started to learn my passion.
Sure.
Was there. Like I figured out my whys. But in that reinvention process, I think every person has a purpose, a built-in passion that is given to them. And
you just got to pull the layers apart,
and you got to
right?
figure out how to use that to give it back to the world. Because I think if we hold our passions for ourselves, whether it be art or music or technology.
Production.
Yes. So production, whatever it may be. You just love to do it in your spare time, but I think that's kind of selfish. And, you have to give it back to the world. Whatever it is, you have to give it back. Wow, that is a humbling
statement. A couple things I want to takeaways that from what you just said was the first one that resonates with me is you said, I made the decision, I told her yes, and then I went and figured it out. So it's the same thing. It's like if you make the decision, you're going to get off drugs, or you're going to get off alcohol, or you're going to end this cycle of poverty and homelessness, then you figure it out. So whether it be something simple, not that Excel is simple, but you just say, yes, I'll figure it, and you go figure it out. So I think there's a huge lesson in life there, because once you've made the decision and you're going to reinvent, you do know your why, then you just go figure it out and you make it happen. And I think that's powerful.
And I think for me, the biggest thing in what I do now for the organization is my biggest contributors have been people like mentoring under you and having different mentors across the city that tell me. It's those relationships and learning from other people's experiences have been the biggest asset to where I'm going. People ask sometimes, what's the key to ending homelessness, drug addiction, all that? And, can I have a 1 through 5 list of step 1 and 2? and I don't think it goes like that, but I think that those meaningful relationships, the actual human connection, was really what changed my life.
Wow. That's again powerful. It is all about relationships. It is about people, and I know a lot of the same. We know a lot of the same people, and some really, at least in my mind, some real influential, some successful, just people who are making it happen out there. And I'm sure you didn't see that for yourself 10, 12 years ago.
No, I didn't think I could even have conversations with those people, and then, but I was willing to put myself out there.
Wow.
Like if nothing else, I'm going to ask them. Can I ask you 3 questions? Like, what are some things that you did bad in your lifetime that you would never want somebody to do again? What are some good things? And then, where's some place you want to go or something you want to work towards? Because if somebody else has made the mistakes, please tell me. I don't want to do it and have to learn the hard way.
Wow.
And the only way you can do that is by talking, and people are willing. Especially, I want to talk to somebody 30, 40, 50 years older than me and tell me, how did how did you stay married for 80 years?
Sure.
How did you work at the same company for 30 years? How did you raise your children to be successful? Because as a parent, I think we all doubt, is this working?
Right. Well, and I'm
Is
sure
this
if you
happening?
look back, as you look back to a decade or 15 years ago, like you said, you probably never saw this amazing life that you have.
I've been unbelievably blessed. And, I think a lot of the time fear would start to creep in. Am I
sure.
worthy? Am I good enough to do this type of work? I'm just a ex-druggie and those things. But then I decided I'm going to do it scared.
Right.
I used to hate talking in public. And then I just did it.
let her go.
I did it scared,
Amazing.
and I found out it's no different than talking in private. You just
Right.
talk.
Right.
So I think sometimes that creeps in, and you just have to.
Self-doubt always creeps in on people, and I think, like I said, it's what we surround ourselves with. I always tell people, what goes in here and what comes in here is what comes out here, right?
Yep.
And so if you put good things in here and here, then good stuff usually comes out. If you
Right.
put the negative or whatever, addiction or porn or
Right.
all these crazy things in all the time, that's typically the type of things
Right.
that come out, right? And so it's amazing. And then the last point I wanted to make before we move on is you were talking about you felt it was like a gift that you could give back and you could share with other people and other single mothers or homeless folks or people that are working through addictions, all those types of things. That is powerful because I know how I get. We're all selfish human beings. We all want things for ourselves. And so for you to turn that around and say it's not about me, it's about what I can do for others, I think that is a huge reinvention in itself. And so I give you all the credit, Family Promise all the credit that you were able to go through that because that reinvention journey, even though we're talking for like 30 minutes, it took a lot longer than 30 minutes to do that whole
Yeah.
thing, right? So how long do you think it really, not that you're not even, obviously it's a lifelong journey, but how long do you think it took for you to really make those huge positive steps and changes to go, this is where I was, I'm not going to be there anymore, and this is the life I envisioned for myself? How long do you think that took?
I think it varied on different parts of my life. So I think with drug addiction, it's something that I still work on every day.
Sure.
I'll always be a drug addict. I just choose not to use. But then I think sometimes that reinvention process, when I set out to become something new, to transform who I was, it wasn't something that I saw happening over the years. It was, 2, 3, 4 years later, I look back and I just kept working towards the goal.
You're falling forward, right?
Right. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, we've done so much. I've accomplished so much. And there's still so much more work to do.
Right.
But you just have to keep working every day at it. A little bit, when you're tired, sometimes just mental note, I'll do that.
Right. It's funny because the last couple of weeks I've been talking about my show and having people listen to it, give me feedback and all this kinds of. Everybody's been really positive. And I've said, well, I've been thinking about having Felicia on the show. And everybody I talk to, of course, so many people in town know you, and they're just like, oh my God, I love Felicia. She's so inspiring. And so it's so great that you're willing to come on and share that stuff,
absolutely.
because that's not easy to talk about, right? And I asked you this before we came on the show is it comfortable for you to talk about this now? Or is it just drum up old bad memories? And you said a few things, and I want you to, if you can, repeat those in a way that works for you. But tell us, how do you feel about that?
So I think with my faith, something that I've learned, and faith and spirituality is so important to me and this whole journey that I've been through as well. But, people are helped by the word of your testimony and the blood of the Lamb. So the secrets that I had, the drug addiction and all of that was very, very secret. And secrets make you sick.
Right.
And the more I talk about it and the more I share my story, the less power it has over me.
Wow.
Yes, it was a horrible thing, but it's not something that sends me into a depression now that I think about it. And it has the opportunity to help others, because if I can get out of it, they can get out of it. And if they have questions, they feel more comfortable to talk to me about it. And also, people who never have used a drug in their life or been homeless or gone through drug addiction, I hope that it shares a light on what it's really like and who comes into that position. I was a teenager. I should have still been in high school,
Right.
but I wasn't. And as
Should
a
have been
young,
going to prom or going to do the things
and
the kids do.
and I had no home to get ready for prom in, so I didn't,
Right.
you know. So just sometimes if they can think outside of what they see right in front of them in the moment, and how did this person come to this part? Because no 5-year-old in kindergarten says, I want to grow up to be a drug addict.
Right.
It's not something they want. It's not something people plan. And I was just, you know, I am born like you with a compulsive, addictive personality. So, you know, right when I tried it as a kid, I was hooked.
Right.
I was all in. So hopefully it can just share some light.
Well, this is perfect. It leads right into my next question. So with regards to like Family Promise, how do people or people that are homeless or people that are addicted, what's your advice to them when you see people that you know, or you talk to people on the street, or you're presenting? I know you do a lot of public speaking and talking about the organization, which is really powerful because you tell your story. And you don't tell it in the first person; you tell it like in the third person. Like this is a story about this person, and she was homeless, and she had these children, and she was homeless at 17, and then she was 24, and she was moving her trailer from spot to spot. Oh, and now this person is successful, and oh, by the way, this person's me. And I remember the first time I heard that, I about fell over, and I saw the video. And then so when you talk about those things, it's hugely impactful because you've lived it, you've been there, you've done it. So what is your advice to people that are maybe hearing it on the podcast, seeing you and I talk, they hear your story, they know a little bit about Family Promise. What's your advice to them? How do they get started?
How did they get started?
Yeah.
You ask.
Yeah.
You ask. It's back to that simple thing. People, not everybody's out to get you. Not everybody's trying to take your job or step over you or whatever. A lot of people truly, really want to help and will share their wisdom, and to swallow that pride and realize that either you're in a place where you need help and it's okay,
Right.
or you're in a place where you can give help and that's okay too. So
It's a two-way street, right? So
Yeah.
there's everybody plays a role, right? And like you said, the first several years of your life, you're probably somewhat defiant from what I kind of gather from you.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you became not submissive, but willing to listen and hear what other people, like you said, asking people what makes them successful, and then really submit and listen and take that information in, and then enact it in your life, right? That's powerful. So what are your kids up to now?
Oh gosh, they're big.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, they're 14, 12, and
Oh, my
and I have a new one that's 3. And you know, it's really cool to see that cycle being broken with them. When I was growing up, it wasn't talking about what college I'm going to go to or what those type of things. It's you know, kind of what job are you going to do to pay bills, to get by week to week to week. And my kids have dreams. They dream big, and there's nothing that can stop them. They are compassionate and non-judgmental to other people. They know where we came from and where mommy came from, and they think, you know, that's okay. People can get better. If you're still breathing, you can still reinvent yourself. There's never a time.
If you're still breathing, you can reinvent yourself, people. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That is amazing right there. So what kinds of things do they want to do? You said they want to go to college and just
so
grow
my
and change.
oldest son wants to go to the Air Force.
Wow.
And build airplanes, and he's very, very good with that stuff. Did not get that from me. And, you know, my middle son wants to be a police officer.
Wow.
And that's great.
Did you ever think that?
No.
Holy
No.
cow, 'cause you're probably trying to avoid those guys, right?
Well, growing up with me, you don't call the cops. Cops are bad, whatever, you know, in my household. And now that he wants to do that, and I encourage it.
Absolutely.
Do it. Absolutely.
Oh, my
he wants
gosh.
to help people. And
If you got nothing out of this session, people, that right there is worth $1
my
million.
son's going to grow up to be a cop.
So we know that your kids are doing great. And so then about you, update us on you. Obviously, you got this amazing job and doing all these great things.
So just hit 5 years working for Family Promise. And it's been the biggest blessing that I mean, to work at what you're passionate about and you love, like there's no bigger blessing than that. And I'm still learning so much. I'm learning and growing and creating those relationships with people on both ends, donors and clients.
Sure.
So, you know, I'm not in direct services. I'm not a caseworker there. I don't talk to the families. But one of my favorite things is because it is a hard program. And the families see me, they know they work there, and they'll get frustrated with the social worker, and they'll come back, Felicia, you don't even know what they're trying to make me do. And then I get to share a little bit about, oh yeah, there ain't nothing that you're going through that I haven't done myself, that our social worker hasn't done. Like, we will never ask you to do something that we haven't already done. And
that's powerful right there.
Yeah, I like to make their mouth drop.
They're like, what?
That's what? And I'm like, yeah. And it wasn't even that long ago. Like, you can be here.
It really wasn't. That was just a blink of it.
Right, absolutely. I was homeless longer than, I've been sober.
So how long have you been clean and sober now? You said something like almost.
So I got 9 years.
9 years.
9 years in March.
That's what a celebration. That's got to feel so good.
Yeah, it does.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Unbelievable. So we talked about where you've been. We talked about your reinvention, your why, all this stories of celebration and reinvention and accomplishment. What's next for you? I always like to ask people that.
My next is always going to be whatever the need is now. So my goal is to create the biggest ripple effect of my life possible. So I want to continue to work in the nonprofit field, continue to spread awareness and get rid of some of those stereotypes that we talked about today. And it's not just what I do. I want the people affected by my life to go out and affect more people and just make the world a better place. I hope in 100 years, something that I did is still making a positive impact on this earth. And that is the ultimate goal, is to do that and hopefully, just be happy and
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I just thought of this. This is kind of funny. So I've got this fancy new cup, says Reinvention with Leif Welhaven, and I love it. It's cool, right? So when you start your own podcast, I'm going to tell you right now, the name of it should be, at least from what I'm hearing right now, it should be called Ripple Effect.
It should.
Hashtag Ripple Effect, people. That is amazing.
That is, my gosh. Anytime anybody's reinventing themselves or looking for things to create their why, I think they should think about their ripple effect. Because it's not just
really
about
powerful.
One person or why you're doing it.
Sure.
It'll have an effect on other people.
Well, the good thing is our little show is just getting started.
Right.
And I got my website going now. You'll see that, people. It's reinventionleif.com. We're going to be on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all those types of things. Anywhere you get your current podcast, you'll be able to hear Felicia and her story. So it's just, this has just been really a powerful time listening to you. And there's just so many takeaways I have. And there's been a few times I thought I was going to break down and honestly cry. And so I'm kind of a softie anyway, but I'm definitely soft for, your story. But it's just such an amazing story of reinvention. And that's what this show was about. Whether people are reinventing, like I talked about before, health and fitness, or maybe it's finances, or maybe it's getting out of debt, maybe it's relationships, or maybe it's really addiction and homelessness. And I think that's I've always heard you talk about a community's response to homelessness. And I think a lot of people in our area, and not just Billings, but all over the country, want to help people who are homeless. They want to help people who are addicted. We want a better life for everybody, but sometimes we just don't know how to get involved. And so to hear your story of this, somebody who's become and overcome and has pivoted and changed and adapted, and I know that was never easy. And it couldn't have been, right? Just to hear your story. But gosh,
the good things never are.
Right? Oh, that's really good too. So any parting words from you before we sign off?
Hey, Leif, I am so excited to be one of your first guests here.
You were the first one, number one.
Oh, that's right. I'm number one.
Yeah.
And I think it's such an honor to see you reinvent and continue to grow, and it's inspiring to a whole community of people as well. I'm excited to see where this podcast goes and where the future goes.
Yes, we all are. That is for sure.
Yeah, and to keep watching it. So thank you so much.
Well, it'd be great to have more stories come on, and maybe what we'll do is down the road we'll have you come back and tell us another reinvention story. Because I'm sure there's more of the journey is yet to come, right? Because you're still a very young woman.
Yeah.
And now you're single, right?
Yes, I am.
So, okay, that's going out there to all you single guys. Just want you to know, Felicia
Yeah, so
Burg.
we can do a dating.
There you go. We'll
we
do a
can talk
speed dating
about
session
dating
next
and
time or
that.
something.
No, just talk about how weird dating is nowadays.
Oh,
COVID dating.
That is true. That is a whole nother reinvention
Right?
in itself. But
Yeah.
So anyway, again, it's Leif and Felicia, Reinvention with Leif Welhaven. You can find us on, again, reinventionleif.com. You'll find us on YouTube. You'll find us in all the places you get your podcasts. We're launching our website and all kinds of great stuff. So if you know somebody that you'd love to hear from, because we want to bring on more people like Felicia who have great stories of reinvention. Whatever the story is, we'd love to hear about it. And so we want to respond to your questions, your needs, what you want to hear about. So hit us up. We'd love to bring that to you next time. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think our next show is going to be talking about health and wellness, so I'm excited about that. But again, Felicia, thank you so much for coming on Reinvention with Leif Welhaven. Thanks, Mark and Charlie. Reinvention with Leif, signing off.